Well, we can't put it off any longer. The Iowa football season is going to kick off here in 10 days. David Eickholt, Sean Bock, Eliot Clough for HawkeyeInsider.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. We officially put out our season predictions this morning. Everybody agreed with us, which is fantastic, as they do every year. We're just, we're unbelievable writers, masters of projection, and I'm just really glad that we all see the things going the same way, and nothing definitely upset anybody. So, Eliot, welcome to the 24/7 Sports Hawkeye Insider Swarm Board when we put out our predictions.
Oh, dude, yeah, this is definitely a universal experience. I think Chad put out his predictions, and the Iowa State fans came out of the woodwork, Nebraska fans, and like even if you try to be reasonable at 8-4 or whatever, we end up saying, then it's oh no, Mark Gronowski is going to throw for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. What are you talking about? So it's that time of year.
Yeah, I think there were a few people on the board too that were saying that were like adding up like the points of what we had for each game. And it's like, oh yeah, now you guys think like the offense isn't going to be as good. And I'm like, all right, like I see where you're coming from. But I think for the most part, when you're making these projections, you're not really thinking about that. You're kind of like, okay, what's a score that might make sense? Or like, what's a score that sounds reasonable? I know for mine, I like had some scores that all sounded the same. Like they were all like dividends of 3 or something, however, whatever the math term is. And I'm like, all right, I need to like change this up a little bit to make it seem like it's not just field goals and touchdowns. And, just, it's got to sound a little more realistic. So yeah, I mean, it was kind of wasn't too difficult of an exercise, but it really was, because this season is just like no one really has a great feel of it. Like the last couple of years, I think it wasn't the season that many people thought it was going to be, but you kind of had a thought of what it was going to be going into last year. So now it's just kind of like this feels like it's just all over the place.
It's hard to make score predictions too when there's already one in front of you. Like Sean did his first, then I did mine, and then Dave did his in our shared article. And Sean and I routinely, at least on my end, I would like, 27-17.
Yeah.
Oh, damn it, Sean just put that. So
I try not to even read what you guys wrote, and then I look at the score, then I went down, and I was like, damn it, I had the same score as Sean. And I'm like, it's just, I don't want this.
You're right.
I mix it up.
Because it's Iowa football, right? They even when they score a lot of points of like 31 points, you think 31-17. Like it's pretty routinely in that 20 to 30 point range, even in a good offensive season. And then the defense holds them to 16, 17 points. So it's pretty easy to all, because we're not covering freaking Tennessee or some other team that is an air raid offense, like a Washington State from however many years ago. Air raid offense can't play defense, where you're thinking it's going to be 56-55.
USC, even the last few years, USC. I mean, they couldn't play defense at all, but they're, Williams was putting up ridiculous numbers too. I'm really upset about my typo, guys. I got called out and kind of killed on the board because I flip-flopped back and forth, and then I woke up, I'm not kidding you, at 4 a.m. and I'm like, okay, did I change it? Because I went through and I changed the record, and I thought I read everything, and I kind of skimmed through what I wrote, and I said, okay, this makes sense. And then right when I woke up, I looked at that, and I was like, oh no, I should have checked it when I woke up, like at 4. But it is what it is. We'll get into all that, but I guess we start from the top. We're gonna do our game-by-game predictions and talk about each game, preview it a little bit. Nothing too crazy, but I love doing this, guys, but I hate doing it just because we're either going to look like geniuses or just complete morons. There's no in between. I've had 12-0 seasons, and I've had 5-7. Right? It's just kind of the way it crumbles. So I think we're all in agreement. I mean, week 1, Albany, this is going to be it's going to be a rout. I mean, Albany is just kind of in shambles right now, complete roster turnover, new coach. The one thing I will say about this, and I'm very interested in what Tim Lester and Kirk do, because I don't think it's going to be one of those things where they don't show a lot, because they have to get Mark Gronowski game reps in this system before they go up against Iowa State. So are they going to throw the ball more than we would have thought if Gronowski played in this practice in the spring? I think so, but this is going to be a comfortable 30-point win at least. I think anything under that is probably not the most ideal start. But this is a game where just talent's going to dominate. Iowa's going to win in the trenches.
I'm in the same boat with both Albany and UMass. Like, I don't even think we necessarily need to talk about them too much. Obviously, it's contingent on how, starting the season and then how you think the Iowa State game is going to go. But like you said, Dave, I actually don't think they're going to show much, but they're going to get reps in the passing game, if that makes sense. It'll be like what we saw in the spring, because you're just going to be astronomically more talented than Albany. Like, you just are. That's the difference. I mean, on their website, you mentioned the roster turnover. Their head coach is still listed as interim head coach. Like, it's not even head. I don't know if that's legit, or if it's just like a delay on changing stuff in the back end of the website or what. But I just think that's telling. Like, Iowa's just gonna slam the door on these guys. UMass hasn't had a above 500 winning, or like above 500 season since they were in the FCS. So it's been 15 years since, and that was a 6-5 season. They're just terrible. So like, both these games should be big, easy wins in a variety of, whether it's passing, whether it's just saying, look, we're going to smash mouth football and get Mark some reps, but it's not going to be a huge deal. Like, I could see it going one of two ways, basically.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat as you. I don't think we're going to get a South Dakota State Iowa 2022 game where it's.
God, I hope not.
Yeah, we're not going to get those. I mean, Albany, it's kind of crazy because 2 years ago, weren't they in the FCS semifinals?
I don't know about, but they're pretty routinely a solid FCS program. I do know that.
Yeah, and I mean, that just kind of goes to show, like, obviously the transfer portal and how that kind of stuff can really alter those types of programs outside of those ones that are in the Missouri Valley Conference. So, that's kind of a drag, but those are kind of two games. If you're Iowa, you really need those types of games because, like you said, Ellie, you need to get Mark reps. Heck, maybe even get Hank Brown some reps, or Jeremy Lindsey, probably Brown, if we're feeling more safe on that end. I don't remember the last time Kirk voluntarily put in the third string quarterback because they were winning so bad. But yeah, it's two games that, we look back a couple of years ago, like, all right, maybe they could be some respectable games. But I mean, if you're not winning by at least 30 points, and I know some people are giving us a hard time because we didn't have Iowa putting up 40 points in those games. It's gotta be blowouts. Like, and you got to show progress. And I mean, it's really interesting to me to think, like, if you lose that Iowa State game, which I had Iowa winning, the interest in people going to that UMass game are probably going to be at a pretty low standard. Like, it's going to be probably one of the least crowded Iowa games, in recent memory. But, to think positively, Iowa's going to beat Iowa State, which should probably go into our next. Let's preview Cy-Hawk.
I was going to say that's kind of wrapping up UMass and Albany. I mean, Iowa's going to win both very, very comfortably. I mean, guys, it's one of those games where the players could be on Melrose for 2 hours before the game and then go in and probably still win. I mean, that's just the talent difference there. This one was I got some feedback on. And originally, I've kind of been saying all offseason that I had Iowa beating Iowa State. And we'll get more into this in the back end of our podcast when we do trap game and all this other stuff. But, guys, I think Rocco Becht makes one more play against this unproven defense that has a lot of question marks, in my opinion. I think that's kind of where it kind of settles. And I think that Iowa State's going to have a little bit of an upper hand because they played Kansas State. I mean, they're playing a legitimate program. They're going to know what it's like to have this version of their team play against a Power 4 opponent, and a pretty good one at that, even though the game is over in Ireland. I think about quarterback play. I think about just kind of the team chemistry at this point. If Mark had practiced in the spring, I would probably give Iowa the nod here, but I think Rocco Becht earned a lot of people's respect last season. I think especially in that game against Iowa, remember, he had a horrific first quarter. Iowa's defense was getting all over him. He made some bad throws, poor decisions, but he really dominated the back end of that game. So you got to tip your cap to him. I think right now, just based on what I know going into the season, I got Iowa State squeaking out a close one. And again, Iowa has not lost in Jack Trice, guys, since 2011. And I don't want to say it's time because I don't really believe in that kind of analysis, but this is a team that's going to be good enough to beat Iowa if they go out there and Rocco plays a damn near really, really good game against a secondary, which I still have questions about.
Was that the Steele Jance game?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, yeah, I know he's goated in Iowa State circles. I have a buddy that was a big Iowa State fan around that time. But yeah, Dave, I'm actually in the same boat as you at this point. Matt Campbell has never beaten Iowa at home. I would feel more inclined to pick Iowa State maybe a little bit more comfortably if they had, returning production at wide receiver. Obviously losing Jalen Knoll and I almost said Jaden Higgins. That hurts. I mean, two of the best receivers in the country. Both end up at Houston in the NFL draft, but to me, it's just quarterback play. I mean, the greatest quarterback in Iowa State history never beat Iowa, right? In Brock Purdy, but you've got a guy who's won a lot of games already. They did have a lot of things swing their way, but the one point you really made that stuck out to me is they will have played Kansas State and South Dakota at this point. So they've really been tested at that point. They've been able to get into a game rhythm more than once. And South Dakota's a top 5 team in the FCS. Like, South Dakota's good. They follow that Iowa formula. They play a defense that's similar to Iowa. Now, they don't have the personnel as Iowa, but having that in your back pocket, having played Kansas State, another top 25 team in the country, in your back pocket, being able to get into a game rhythm twice as much. I know it's one game versus two, but twice as much as Iowa, that makes me nervous. Quarterback play for Iowa should be better, but again, it's game 2. And I think Tim Lester probably learned his lesson, I guess, so to speak, with what that shot play to Lachey where he Cade threw that pick, which was just a terrible read.
The play was there, though, and Lester's been adamant that the play was there, and that's what's been interesting, too.
If he hit his check down, I think it's there.
Yes.
And Cade has to make a better throw. But, yeah, that's why I go Iowa State here, too, by 1 score. I mean, the one thing we keep talking about is if things fall right. And if things fall right, this could very well be a blowout win for Iowa. But I don't see Iowa State being able to pull that off. But I could see it being a close win for Iowa. I could see it being a close loss for Iowa. Also, Iowa State gets those really good linebackers back. Caleb Bacon's back. They had so many injuries in the middle of the defense last year. And so I'm at a point where I'm picking Iowa State, just given mostly it's momentum and rhythm. That's mostly what I'm leaning on right here.
Iowa's offensive front should dominate the Iowa State defensive front, though. That's kind of the one matchup that made me wary about it, though, too. Sean, I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, I mean, the Dominique Orange and Logan Jones matchup is going to be really, really interesting one. And Iowa State playing that 3-3-5 defense, which was a pretty unique look from what Iowa played last year. And I think it's one of those games, too, where it's similar to last year, where it's going to be the team that there's going to be a team that gets out to a nice jump, and that's going to play a big part in the game. But it's also going to be, okay, who gets out to a big jump and can they slam the door right away? Because as you know, like, it kind of like both of these teams have the feel of, okay, if you're going to like keep an opportunity there, like, we're going to keep knocking, there's always a play that's going to happen where it could change the outcome of the game. Like, obviously Iowa had it last year with its defense to a degree, but I think the offense is more capable of that this year, making some of those plays that Iowa State was able to make last year later on in the game, and be able to kind of say, okay, like, if you're not going to shut the door on us, we're going to be right here and we're going to potentially make a play. And I think this defense for Iowa is more capable of doing that too. And same goes with the special teams. Maybe this is a game where, like, back in 2021, where special teams wins the game, or whichever year that was. Was that 2019 with the muff punt?
Where he's got,
where it hit was it 2021?
Ellie, do you not remember that?
No, I remember that. I'm just trying to think of names. That's why I made that face. I couldn't remember the names. That was pre-2020.
Yeah, so that's 2019.
It was 2019 then? Okay.
Yep. So that's 2019. Like, it could come down to a play like that. And I do get where you're coming from, Elliot, where Iowa State's going to be way more tested, and that definitely worries me a little bit. And Iowa's not going to have that, but I think the experience on defense is going to help a lot in that regard than giving up some of those big plays that they gave up last year. Like, I don't think that's going to happen this year for Iowa on the defensive end against that Iowa State team. What's up?
To that point, those big explosive plays are just so antithetical to the way Phil Parker structures the defense. They'll give you a 15-yard out and they'll give you between the 20s, but they just do not give up explosive plays. I think having Xavier Wampa at that free safety spot is going to help quite a bit as opposed to Strong. So that's one reason that I could see this going either way too, because those explosive plays are what killed Iowa in that game. And Sebastian Castro in particular, we know what happened at the end of that game. It just was so anti Phil Parker defense. So yes, that's why I would lean Iowa in that circumstance too.
But then it happened in the next game too against Troy.
Yeah.
Granted, Devontae Ross is really talented.
He's going back to Phoenix Stadium, remember?
Yeah.
He's with Penn
and I
State
will
now.
face him later on this season. And I don't know. Like, I have a hard time thinking that this Iowa State wide receiver corp is going to be as dangerous as last year.
Me too.
And that was just, I mean, I know it kind of became a regular norm for Iowa with giving up some of those big plays in the passing game. And that was really, really frustrating, a frustrating trend throughout the year. I don't think it's going to be as much of a trend this year. And I think that's where Iowa State's going to want to attack you a little bit, but might be more of a traditional Iowa State team who's probably going to hit you on some of those quick hitters and run the football. So this one was so hard for me to pick. Like, I was going back and forth for a while. But I just think Iowa has the personnel to win this one. I think it's going to be, I mean, quarterback play is going to be huge, but I just look at each position. I'm like, okay, outside of quarterback, like, there's really not one position where I'm like, Iowa State runs away with it. And the only reason I'm saying Iowa State runs away with quarterback is because Rockelbeck has proven that he can play at a pretty high level. Mark Gronowski, he's done that the last couple of years, no doubt, but it's a new system, new just environment, like just so much new for him.
New level of football.
Exactly. Yes.
Too. I mean,
yes, it's just new. Like, and I think that's going to be an adjustment for him. But like I said, if you look at every other position, I don't see one position where I go, okay, Iowa State heavily wins there. And I think that's going to make a big difference.
This was the hardest game for me to pick, by the way. Like, without a doubt. Like, I went back and forth on this probably at least 5 different times. I might flip back by game week. I really don't know, because I could talk myself into Iowa winning. I could talk myself into Iowa State, but I give respect to Rocco Beck, and that's not downplaying Mark Gronowski. That's just saying he was not able to go through the spring to be as caught up with this system and have the chemistry with the receivers. Like, I think we're really going to see the real Mark Gronowski and get a gauge on how he'll be for the rest of the season against Indiana. That's not the next game, but that's when that homecoming game, the end of September, is going to be when I kind of make up my full mind about the type of quarterback he's going to be for Iowa this year. So again, I got a loss here. We're skipping UMass. We already talked about that. Let's go to Rutgers. Guys, Iowa's 4-0 against Rutgers since they joined the Big Ten. Iowa's won by double digits in 3 of the 4 games. They've won by at least a touchdown in every single game. Iowa's used to a Friday schedule. They've played at least, the Black Friday game. Like, they know how to operate like this and be comfortable with it. I'm not going to be surprised if Iowa wins by double digits here. I just think that Iowa's the better football team. Rutgers does not exactly have a rocking environment, especially on a Friday night. And I really don't see a lot of adversity for Iowa in this one. I think Mark Gronowski has a really good game. I think Iowa runs the football effectively. And again, I look at the way they're going to win in the trenches. Like, I love Iowa's defensive line. I assume Iowa by this point is going to have left tackle pre-figured out in this one. So I won't give a score prediction here. I mean, you can read that at HawkeyeInsider.com, but I got double-digit Iowa win. I think they win by at least 10 points. This is not going to be a snoozer, and I also don't think they're going to overlook Rutgers ahead to Indiana, right? And I also think that the extra day of rest will be really good for when they play against Indiana. But I know not love groundbreaking analysis here. I just think Iowa's the more talented team, and they've had proven success when they go on the East Coast. So I got Iowa.
Greg Schiano is the best that they're going to do at Rutgers as far as football. It might be the founding of college football or whatever they call it out there in East Rutherford, but there's just not high quality football. like they're the best they're going to do is 7-5, maybe 8-4, like on the best. They're not going 10-2, nothing like that. Like that, Greg Schiano is the peak of Rutgers football. You mentioned the East Coast. East Coast, very different than the West Coast in Iowa football lore. Again, Rutgers just does not recruit to the level that Iowa does. Sure, they might get involved. Sure, they might throw some money at kids. But it's just a different level of football. This is one where I could see Iowa just pounding them into the ground. So I picked Iowa. Sean, I know you mentioned the success they had in the portal. You said that this game gives you a little bit of pause, right?
Yeah, it does, because Friday night game, you're in a place like Rutgers. I remember Iowa winning that game pretty handily back in 2023, but I think a lot of that had to do with Cooper DeJean and his playmaking.
Was that? Oh, that was at home. It was away in 22, right? When Coop had that big play.
What was the one where he had the over the?
That was 22.
That was 22. Okay.
Yep. 23. Yeah, they put him at home and beat him 22-0 with Deacon Hill at quarterback. So
that's right. Because I was at a wedding that day, so that's how I got.
Iowa had 27-10 in the 2022 matchup when they were at Piscataway.
That was like, Cooper's legit, and then he just continued to be awesome.
And my one caveat with this game is there's a lot of talk from Piscataway about Rutgers and how they've kind of the offense has really changed in a way. You have Athan-Kaliak-Manis coming back for another year. He was good for a Rutgers quarterback last year, but then they also added a couple of guys in the receiver room that they were really excited about. So the one thing that gives me pause is, okay, if your secondary, if they don't play the way that maybe in that Iowa State game, if they struggle, that's where Rutgers might try and attack you with that passing game. And obviously we don't know what Rutgers' passing game is going to look like yet, because you had a guy in the you had guys via the portal. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to translate.
No.
But I'm just kind of reverting from what they're saying, that there's a lot of good talk about their wide receivers. Our Rutgers site put them as their number one position group for Rutgers' offense going into the season, with quarterback being second. Granted, this could play into Iowa's favor too, because if you pass the ball against a traditional Iowa defense a bunch, that's generally going to turn to turnovers and mistakes. But if you run the ball and are able to assert yourself at the line of scrimmage, then that's really when Iowa seems to have more troubles traditionally. So I think with this game, if Rutgers' passing attack is able to do kind of what it's hyped up to be, and Iowa's secondary isn't necessarily living up to par, that's where it gives me a little bit of, okay, like this could be an interesting game if Rutgers is able to throw the kind of gives me maybe a little Michigan State vibes from last year, but I don't think Michigan State or Rutgers is going to be as good in the trenches as Michigan State was against that Iowa team last year. Granted,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, granted that they've also added a couple guys in the offensive line via the portal that I think they've kind of reshaped their offensive line and defensive line too. So that's where it gives me a little pause and kind of being a game where it's like, okay, are we going to get up for this? Stuff like that.
Who was their running back that they lost?
Monungai?
Yeah, he was supposed to be the best running back in the Big Ten, and then Caleb Johnson had his season. So they don't have him coming back. Their schedule last year was not very good. I see the stats from Kaliak-Manis. He was offered by Iowa, and he would have been a very Iowa quarterback circa 2020 to 2024. Like,
right.
We'll say that. I am not a Kaliak, like stats, like you said, Sean, stats were fine, but Kaliak-Manis is ass. Like, I'll say it.
Yeah. He got better as the season went on.
He did.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah. He had some good games, and maybe this will be what's the term I'm looking for? Bulletin board material. They'll take a snippet out of the Swarmcast.
Go for it.
Put it
in the locker room.
Go for it.
Yeah.
I'll say this, though, too. And my big separator for this one is this is the game I had Iowa's defensive line dominating because Kelly Manis, if you rattle him early, he just has not shown me the fight back ability. And I think Iowa's get kind of pin their ears back and make them uncomfortable. So even if Iowa's secondary doesn't play up to par, like this has Brian Allen written all over it, in my opinion. Like this could be the 2.5 sack game for him this season. Like he's that kind of potential.
This has 3 picks written all over it to me. Like TJ Hall grabs one, Cohen, a Jaden Harrell grabs a tip ball. It just that's what it looks like to me. And if I'm wrong, clip it, Rutgers fans. Roast me. Go for it.
Love it, Elliot. I love you calling me shot. This is great. Get that material out there. Just like tweet it without any context.
Pop up at all or no?
What's that? I'm sorry.
I was on ESPN looking at Callie McManus' stats, and there was just a video that popped up. But the last 3, okay, so the last 4 games of the regular season for Callie McManus, Rutgers went 3-1, excuse me. Almost beat Illinois. Callie McManus had, in the last 4 games, he had 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, and I mean, his completion percentage wasn't great, but he also had 2 rushing touchdowns against Illinois. So I think a lot of Rutgers people are kind of basing it off those last 4 games. And I mean, good for you. Like, of course you're going to do that. Like, especially once that's a program that hasn't had great quarterback play since, I mean, I can't really tell you a Rutgers quarterback. Like, it's kind of one of those, I'm sure Iowa fans would be the exact same way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
The other quarterback that comes to mind is Gavin Wimsatt. And
he was
terrible at Iowa in that 22-0.
Yeah.
He's at Kentucky, or did he transfer again?
He is at.
I think he only transferred once. I don't think he re-entered the portal.
He's at Jacksonville State.
Oh, there you go. Maybe he did. Okay, well, point you out.
So
Rutgers quarterback.
Send me to Piscataway for like a Rutgers trivia night or something.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Well, yeah, I mean, there just hasn't been any, if all, great quarterback play. And, maybe this is a year for Athens to turn around. But, I mean, Rutgers has a pretty tough schedule, too. Yeah. I don't remember who exactly they pulled, but I know they have a pretty tough schedule. And it could be, for them, best case is probably 7-5.
I have their schedule in front of me right now. They play – Iowa is their first Power 4 game. They play Ohio, Miami of Ohio, and Norfolk State in the non-con. So they should be 3-0. But then they play Minnesota, Washington, Oregon, Purdue, Illinois, Maryland, Ohio State, Penn State. So that Oregon, Illinois, Ohio
Washington
State,
should be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, they will.
That'll be brutal.
All right, so I got win. I got what's it now? I got 3-1 going into homecoming. Big game. This is a big game for the season, I think, guys. Like, if you're going to knock off one of the 3 college football playoff teams in Kinnick, this has the most realistic shot to me. Another game I went back and forth on, but ultimately it came down to this. Like, Fernando Mendoza is a good quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I think Mark Gronowski outplays him. I have a lot of respect for Kurt Cignetti. What he's been able to do, all he does is win. You can Google him. But his offensive schemes are fantastic, especially in the passing game. I just don't think Mendoza's as pure of a passer as Kurt Rookie was. And I just don't see them kind of continuing that crazy offensive year that they had last year. Now, again, I mean, look at their schedule, but I'm not going to knock them for that. They played and defeated who was on their schedule, right? It's a Big Ten schedule, regardless. I do think this is the game where we're going to find out if the secondary is going to hold out for the season. This is going to be where if they show up and they show out, or at least, quote, do their job, I think you feel a hell of a lot better going into that bye week that following week. I went back and forth on this. This is a game where I think the Kinnick crowd is going to be incredibly fired up. I think this is the biggest home game that Iowa's had, assuming that Indiana is ranked at the time. Biggest game they've had in the last couple of years at least. So I think Iowa makes 1 or 2 more plays. I think this is a classic, like, Iowa's going to get them at the right time. And I think this carries a lot of momentum going into that first bye week. So again, I flip-flopped on it, but ultimately I think Mark Gronowski is going to have his biggest early game as a Hawkeye in this homecoming matchup. So give me Iowa by maybe 4 points. I'm going to go outside the 3. I mean, I could see it being 27-23.
Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, I didn't know we were changing up the order there.
Whatever.
So I did have Iowa losing this game. And the reason for that is I think Indiana is a more talented team than last year, but they just have a harder schedule than they did last year. And I think with this Indiana team, yes, you have Mendoza, and he's kind of a really good passer and one of those guys that looks good in shorts because he has a really strong arm, precision passer. He just really got the short end of the stick at Cal because the offensive line play was horrendous, like one of the worst in the FBS ranks.
Yeah.
And the thing with this Indiana team is you look up and down the offense, you could make an argument that their receiver corp is one of the more talented in the Big Ten, led by Elijah Surratt. But they also have running backs, too, that are pretty good. Like, they lose a couple of guys from last year, but then they bring in two transfers, Lee Beebe and Roman Hemby from UAB in Maryland. And then they have another back returning, Kaylon Black. Like, that's a pretty good – like, those are two guys that complement each other pretty well. I think offensive line is going to be interesting for them. They lose a couple of guys, Mike Kadick, Trey Weddick, who were starters for a couple of years. But outside, a lot of this will hinge on Mendoza. And also you look at their defense, too. They bring a couple of guys back on defense. Kamara is one of the big names, and they should be a pretty solid group on that end, too. And it's going to be a pretty good coaching matchup. Like, these are two – Kirk and Cignetti are – similar in a way, but also different. Like, I feel like there's a similar persona with them where they're both kind of like edgy in a way, if that makes sense. Like,
Kirk's gotten a lot more edgy post-COVID.
Yeah,
like covering him in 2018-19, he gave you nothing. Now he's in kind of I don't give a mode where he tells you what he thinks.
That's at least my interpretation of it too, but that's not totally going to matter. And also when you look at this Indiana team too, probably the secondary is their biggest strength on defense. So you're going to have to find a way to run the football against this team. And I think Iowa's running attack is pretty good, but this is kind of going to be those games where it's okay. We're going to have to run the ball for maybe 250 instead of throwing the football. Like, yes, that's going to be a classic Iowa win in the way, but you really have to be able to run the football against this Indiana team. Like, this is kind of that game where I look at it, I'm like, okay, this is going to be where you need to do it. But I just think, I don't know. I just have a feeling that Indiana is going to find a way to win this one. I think them being a more talented team from last year is going to be huge. I think the coaching is interesting too. I think some people argue that Cignetti is, got a really good draw last year, and that's kind of that. But I just think this Indiana team has a little more horsepower than this Iowa team to get over that, bump. And I think Indiana finds a way to squeak it out.
I'm in the same boat. Mendoza, 16 passing touchdowns, 3,000 yards, like relative to what we've seen last season at Cal. He had that relative to what we've seen from this Iowa program. I mean, folks would be chanting Heisman in Iowa City, and then you give him a better offensive line, better offensive weapons. They have 3 preseason All-Americans. Sean just referenced some of them. Curtis O'Rourke was maybe more prior to Indiana.
Well, sorry to interrupt you too, but he was hurt all of last year.
Yep, exactly. Passed for 29 touchdowns, 3,000 yards. Like, you feed these guys to Cignetti. I mean, like, this is one season that we have, for example, but to bring in Mendoza, this is a scenario where, well, one, you said it, Dave. I think no matter what happens at Iowa State, like, if they're really good or the defensive backs at Iowa, if they're really good or if they're really bad, you can look at it as a snapshot of like, okay, now this is a second game where we start to see a trend one way or another. So if they're really good against Iowa State and they're really good against Indiana, then they're probably going to be really good. But if they're really bad against Iowa State and they're decent against, like, the trend starts to form right there. So I picked Indiana here too. But I mean, again, it wouldn't surprise me if you see a scenario where Iowa squeaks one out because TJ Hall got an interception or a pick six for, like, I'm sure you guys remember the Michael Penix game. Like, what if that happens? I mean, I think it's going to be different. Penix, I ended up being really good and was good at Indiana for the most part, just wasn't really surrounded with talent. This is also, I mentioned the 1-2 games for Iowa State versus Indiana for what Iowa's secondary could be. This second year of Kurt Cignetti at Indiana is also going to be a determining year. It's like, oh, is he a really good coach? Was last year a fluke? Like, what are we going to see here? So right now I'm leaning the way of Cignetti being legit and Fernando Mendoza taking advantage of the weapons that he's given, as opposed to, what happened at Cal.
I just can't see Iowa starting 5-0. And that was kind of my big thing. Okay, I'm going to go back and forth between Indiana and Iowa State. Like, I think they're going to lose one of those games. Because if you start out 5-0 and you have wins against Iowa State and Indiana, ironically, think about saying that 10 years ago. Like, you're setting yourself up for a potentially special season, right? So Iowa then gets a bye week. I think it's a perfect time for a bye week. And guys, I can't believe I'm saying this. I don't think Iowa has trouble at Wisconsin at all. Like, I think Wisconsin's will could be potentially broken at that point. I do think they want to get up for this Iowa game. Obviously, it's a rivalry game, but we've heard all offseason about how upset the team was after giving up 42 against Iowa. I got to tell you, doing 42 push-ups at the end of every workout really doesn't do much for you in the grand scheme of things, even over the course of a year. Like, Wisconsin, I don't know who they pissed off the Big Ten office, but their schedule is ridiculous. Like, it is probably the hardest Big Ten schedule I remember seeing, at least since I started covering the team officially in 2018. I think Iowa wins by double digits. I don't believe in the quarterback play they have. I think Luke Fickell, I think next year is going to be the make or break year for him, even with that new extension and that revised contract he got. But guys, I have Wisconsin going 4-8 this season, maybe 5-7. Like, I don't think they get bowl eligible. I think they're going to be decent, but it's very possible that their will is going to be broken in the third quarter of the season. Like, that's just how difficult that schedule is. So I think Iowa goes in there and really has no problem going in there winning by double digits.
You beat me to making fun of them for 42 push-ups. So I won't go into that too detail, but they play at Alabama early on in the season. I think Alabama's number 8 going into the season. Yeah. And then they play Michigan, who's number 14. Like, you get both of those games before Iowa. You mentioned Will being broken. Like, they're going to get pounded. Iowa's just going to further, like, it was like, oh, you're down on the concrete. Okay, now we're going to kick you in the teeth. Like, that's kind of the way I expect.
Dig the knife deeper.
Exactly. Like, Billy Edwards is not going to be the savior in Madison.
I can tell you.
He's fine. Like, I mean, he was bad against Iowa with a hurt hand. So we'll give you that. But I'm in the same boat. Like, 34-20 would not surprise me in this one for Iowa to win and go to Madison and win. And like, Camp Randall's, like, for whatever rating college football 25 gave him or 24 gave him, Camp Randall's not that intimidating. Maybe at night, but like the way the students are
filling second half.
No, not even. Like, the students don't fill all the way in until the second quarter. Like, it's just not that intimidating. So I have Iowa winning here. I think this is a good spot for Mark Gronowski to really, like, okay, you know the offense now. Like, you are in a rhythm. You know where to go and when to go. Would not surprise me if Iowa carves up Wisconsin in this game.
I think for Wisconsin, one of their big concerns is corner. If I'm not mistaken, that's kind of the secondary is kind of one of their big. I know they return Austin Brown at one of the safety spots, but yeah, I think this is one of those games where I think Wisconsin is going to try and do whatever it can to limit Iowa on the run and force Gronowski to win this game. based on what happened last year. And I know Wisconsin feels pretty confident that they have a better interior linebacker crew, and they got a couple guys via the transfer portal too on the defensive line that they feel pretty good about. They feel better about that scheme too. And it's going to be a really interesting game because I think it could be a 17-10 type game or 23-17, like something along those lines. But I just have the feel of Iowa just as Kirk has kind of had Luke Fickell's number. And I think from a coaching and just, in game situations, I feel like Iowa has the better staff in that regard too. And, is able to make those adjustments quicker than maybe Wisconsin is. But I just think it's going to be, I'm not going to say it's going to be a blowout or anything. Like, I don't think Iowa's going to dominate the way they did last year. But I could see a 10-point win. I could also see a touchdown win. Like, last year was such an outlier that I don't like just with the way the rivalry has gone. And obviously it's a totally different Wisconsin system, Wisconsin scheme. But yeah, I just think Iowa has come to that edge. Just kind of the same thing with the Iowa State. It's Iowa just has the edge at more positions, and there's not really one for Wisconsin where I'm like, okay, like this is increased. Maybe linebacker, that's about it.
More for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. There's just no.
If Iowa gets to 5 games in this season and the linebacker core is way better, than we're feeling right now, where it's a question mark.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is one of those games too where I was talking with some buddies earlier today. There's like, I feel like we're talking kind of confidently about certain teams, about Iowa winning some of these games, but like there are 9 games where you look at the schedule, you think to yourself, this one could go either way. Yeah. Like it just makes it like more scary to just, if you're this Iowa team or if you're an Iowa fan more so, because I know Iowa's thinking game by game, whatever. But just look at the schedule and you think to yourself, man, like these could go so many different ways and how this season could go.
I mean, it's going to be a fun year. I mean, ultimately, that's what it comes down to. Like, I'm really intrigued about a lot of things. So, again, I got to win. Right now, I got 5-1, Iowa. And then this is where you either become a special team or a really good team. Iowa hosts Penn State. This is probably the only game on the schedule, guys, where I'm like, I'd be stunned if Iowa won. I think they're going to be double-digit underdogs in this one. There's a reason why Penn State's a perennial college football. They're a contender to win it all this year. It's a really big year for Drew Aller, but like they are great up front, especially on the offensive line. They have 2,000-yard backs. Like they have weapons on weapons. This could be a game, Elliot, where they run 75 plays against Iowa. And in the fourth quarter, like they just find a way to punch Iowa in the mouth. I think I'd put Iowa losing by 12-14. I think it's an entertaining first half. I don't think Iowa gets their spirit broke or anything like that, especially in the first half. But Penn State at this point in the year and with the expectations they have, I also think James Franklin's going some revenge, considering what happened in Iowa City last time. So I think Penn State wins by double digits. I just think the level of talent they have. I know they're worried about the defensive line, but it's Penn State. They're going to get 4- and 5-star guys. They're going to be really well developed. They have a good secondary. They have proven offensive playmakers, and they have, I think, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. If he can go out there and prove it, if he takes his risks downfield and really trust his receivers. So I'll go Penn State 30, Iowa 15. Iowa gets in the end zone, but has held to 3 field goals.
Penn State's too good. Like this is a scenario where if they look, because Ohio State's the week after, they will have had for Penn State. I have their schedule right here. They'll have had Oregon, UCLA, Northwestern, and then at Iowa. They're going to at UCLA too, so that'll be tough. Then Northwestern, and then at Iowa and at Ohio State. They actually have a bye week between Iowa and Ohio State, so that's probably advantageous for them, so they don't look too far ahead into the future. But I mean, they're just too good from top to bottom. If Drew Aller hadn't come back, we might be having a different conversation. But Penn State, like you said, they just reloaded edge. They have first-round draft picks on first-round draft picks at edge. Their DBs are going to be really good. Their receiving core is better. Like they're just going to be.
They're a top 5 team in the country for a reason. Like people are picking them to go to the title game. This is the best team that they've had since James Franklin got there, at least from top to bottom.
And I think what people are most worried about is James Franklin and the success or lack of getting over that hump that he's had during his tenure at Penn State. And yeah, and you look at some of these past games too that they've played in Iowa City. Like I know they're different teams, but Iowa's always played Penn State tight in Kinnick. So I could see this being a game where Penn State makes that 1 or 2 extra play, but it could be like that Michigan game back in 2022, but without Connor Stallions on the sideline, where you feel like Michigan or Iowa stays in the game, but they're not able to make that 1 or 2 big plays to put them over the top, but they're always in the game, but they have chances of winning the game, if that makes sense. I think that's what's going to happen here. I could see Iowa losing by 10, but they have chances that they just can't get over that hump, or Penn State makes 1 or 2 extra plays that ends up winning the game.
Because they're in Kinnick, I give them a chance. If this was in Happy Valley, we wouldn't. This would have been over in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I would have given it first quarter, Elliot. But again, I respect.
I would have said halftime, because at least you have competent quarterback play.
Yes,
as opposed to the last season.
And Cade was hurt.
Yeah, that might have been the biggest mistake I've ever had.
Weren't they down to? Wasn't Caleb hurt too? Johnson,
I think.
Was he?
Because that was when Kamari Moulton and Terrell Washington Jr. got reps as true freshmen.
Yeah, that was a fun game to be at for sure. All right, so I got Iowa losing, and then I think again. Then Iowa is going to host Minnesota, guys. Some people are in on Minnesota. I'm not, quite frankly. I don't think they're going to be very good. I think the Kinnick crowd is going to be so unbelievably fired up after what I think is one of the most ridiculous, egregious calls in Kinnick Stadium history about what happened a couple of years ago. I know people say, well, it wasn't an invalid signal. Then about 90% of punts are invalid signals. And, probably should have been unsportsmanlike for late hit. Anyway, I think Iowa wins by double digits. I think this is a very big Mark Gronowski game. I think Kamari Moulton has 2 scores. I think Aston Estranga gets a touchdown in this game. I think Iowa, again, I don't like predicting so many Iowa double-digit wins. I just think the way the schedule lines up and where they're at right now and all the revenge factor, this is another game where I think Iowa kind of runs away with it. I just think they're the better team. I think obviously Minnesota has some really great safety play. I don't buy them in the trenches. And I still think Kirk Ferentz owns PJ Fleck and has had tremendous success against Minnesota. I don't see it changing. Again, I'm picking Iowa. I mean, by anywhere from 7 to 13 points. It's one of those games where even if they win by single digits, I don't think it's really a doubt.
You mean you don't – sorry, I ruined the order again. You mean you don't think PJ is going to put 9 in the box this time against Iowa like they did back in 2023? That was – if you have anyone else at quarterback, you win that game if you're Iowa. Like, there were so many chances for Iowa to win that football game, and they just didn't. And I do think one thing that worries me a little bit about Minnesota is they have 3 guys that can change the game. You have Darius Taylor at running back. You have Coy Parrott at safety. And you have, Anthony Williams on the edge? Or Smith. Anthony Smith? Anthony Smith on the edge, sorry. You have Anthony Smith on the edge. Those are 3 guys that I think could really change the game in various ways. Darius Taylor didn't have the sophomore year that he was expected to have, but, man, he was good as a freshman. He was pretty dang good as a freshman. Really good back. A guy that Iowa really wanted in that 2023 class. I just think those 3 guys are game changers, and that worries me a little bit. because they're the Cooper DeJean comparisons there with Perrick. And we know that Cooper could change the game in a split second. His playmaking ability led that. That's where I worry most about Iowa in this game. But then again, you have a new quarterback from Minnesota in this year in Drake Lindsey, who has been pretty good when he's gotten to play. But, can that continue in being a full-time starter? Max Brosmer, he had experience last year, and obviously Iowa ran away with that game. But I'm not really ready. Like you said, Dale, I'm not ready to buy this Minnesota team yet. I do think they have some experience at tight end that's going to help. Offensive line play should be decent, but I just don't really see it in Kinnick. So I think I had Iowa by like 10 or 13.
I would put this at 10-20 for Iowa in a victory. Darius Taylor hasn't been good against Iowa. I mean, he's had good games and been good against other teams, but he has not been good against Iowa. Coy Perrick is the difference maker for that Minnesota team. Like, had he not been born and raised in northern Minnesota, he would not be a Gopher. Like, Ohio State came in and offered. Iowa really wanted him bad. I would not be surprised if they pitched you could be our Cooper DeJean, because that's what he is for Minnesota. But this is just one of those games where I think, again, Gronowski's ability to pass the ball is going to put them up and over the top, and they just beat the crap out of the Gophers. And it would not surprise me if we get a coup just for the sake of, you know what I mean? Like, and you mentioned Iowa had so many opportunities. It went from quarterback to officials doing way too much. Like, that's like the range of how much better Iowa was in that football game, other than quarterback, and like all the reasons they should have won that game. It's that type of range. So I think Iowa manhandles the Gophers at home.
I got hit in the head with a can after they overturned the touchdown, by the way.
You and I were on the field, and we go. I remember turning to you and saying, "What Cooper's going to return this?" Like,
oh yeah, you did call that too,
and we all were like, "What?"
It's like,
it was
the
craziest play I've ever seen live, and then the officials went out there and said, "Nope, that's not what happened." So, and being, having the OABCIG connection to Cooper, knowing his family, I feel a little bit more bitter about that than I otherwise would. But yeah, that might be a conversation for another day.
For sure. I know Sean's gonna have to get out of here. He's got some business to attend to in like 10 minutes. So, Ellie, if you and I gotta finish this up, we'll just say Sean's picks.
Sure.
After. But then going on after Minnesota, Iowa again. Talk about the best bye week possible timing wise. I think this season Iowa gets a second bye week, hosting Oregon, November 8th. I got the Ducks winning. And to be honest, guys, I'm stunned at how many people are picking Iowa to beat Oregon in this game. Like, I know you two are going to say your picks, but like Chad Leistko said they predicted Iowa to beat Oregon. Like, I've seen national people do it. I know they still have a quote unquote quarterback controversy up there. I think it's going to be Dante Moore, but like, I just think Oregon's speed is going to be the big difference maker. I just don't think Iowa athletically is going to be able to keep up with some of the things they can do. But Oregon is missing some key pieces. I mean, we know about Evan Stewart, wide receiver, he's out for the year. But, like, this is still a team that recruits at the highest of highest levels, right? I think Iowa competes, but this is another game where Iowa, I think just that the talent's a little bit too much out of their hands. And I think athletically, Iowa gets beat on the edge. I don't know how, if it's going to be through running or through the air. But if Iowa misses a tackle in the open field on a 8-yard out route and the guy goes upfield, I just don't think Iowa is going to have the speed to be able to keep up with them. If they pull out a couple tricks, Dan Lanning's a hell of a coach. I got Oregon winning this one.
I was thinking about this recently, and in my head, I said Joel Lanning instead of Dan Lanning. So shout out to Iowa State again. Dan Lanning's a very good coach. Yep. Oregon, a very good football program. Losing Evan Stewart hurts. They do have a 5-star receiver in Decorian Moore coming in who's going to impact the game. Like, he's going to play. They got some really good transfers out of the portal, some 5-star transfers, according to us at 24/7. To me, where this thing changes is, one, it's November. Iowa November football at home. That's where top, whatever Joel Klatt said, top 5 teams go to die. I'm sure a lot of these kids have experienced cold weather. It's Oregon, right? Like, it's not like they're coming from Southern Cal. But a lot of these kids, I mean, I heard the A&F guys talk about it on their season preview pod, where like, these guys are going to be flying into Cedar Rapids. There's going to be nothing between Cedar Rapids and Iowa City.
Besides construction.
Exactly. And they're going to go into Kinnick Stadium, where there's going to be, it might be like under 20 degrees. I mean, who knows? It's early November. It could be 70 for all we know at Iowa. But if it's 20 degrees and there are shirtless guys in the front row screaming about your girlfriend who just broke up with you and sliding in your, you know what I mean? Like, these guys are on top of it. It's going to be a different experience. Like, playing at USC compared to Iowa, it's different. They didn't really play anybody away from home. If I remember right, I got to relook at their schedule, but away from home, that was a real Big Ten test last year in their first year in the Big Ten. So that is why, and young quarterback. Like, again, if this secondary is going to be really good, then I start thinking, okay, maybe they can pull off some of these victories. And that's why I picked Oregon. And Iowa just kind of finds a way to win some of these games. They find a way to lose games. They find a way to win games. This is one that I think they could find a way to win. With that Drew Stevens last second field goal, like Michigan, whatever happened however many years ago when they beat Michigan at home. 2016, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think this game has the feel of that 2016 Michigan game, where you're kind of like, okay, Michigan is a lot better team on both sides of the ball, and you know, they just kind of have that talent. And you look at this Oregon team, really just quarterback, and then they have, what do they have at quarterback? A former 5-star, a former pretty high 4-star. Like, they have so much talent on this roster. And I really do think, like, the psychological aspect of it, which you really harped on there, Elliot, is going to play a factor in this one, because it feels like the rowdy at Kinnick is a lot different than the rowdy at USC or definitely UCLA, wherever wherever Pac-12 schools they play at. And I think with this Oregon team too, I just feel like it's one of those games where mistakes happen, and Iowa just finds a way to get into a rhythm and finds a way to make plays. I think you're going to have whoever's at left tackle, presumably Trevor Lauck. I think he's going to be a lot more comfortable, even with the edge rushers that they have, because it's going to be later on the season, and you're going to have an offensive line group that I think is going to be pretty good. We don't know yet about Oregon's offensive line. Yes, they get a couple of guys in the portal, but what are those guys going to do in the Big Ten? That's a big question mark. Yes, they have talent at the receiver corps. Yes, they have talent at running back. There's talent at quarterback, but it's not necessarily there. Iowa will need to play their most complete game of the season to win this game. And it just gives me a feel that this is going to be one where they are able to win 24-20, 30-27. Like, I just think there's a way for them to win this game. But it could also be like Penn State, where they hang in it, and Oregon just blows it up in the second half. I really don't know if there's an in-between with this matchup.
Talking about the schedule last year, this reminds me of them playing at Wisconsin and winning 16-13 against a bad Wisconsin team. Iowa is going to be substantially better than that Wisconsin team that they played last year. And
that's a good poll.
That's pretty much where I'm at. There was another point I wanted to make, but other than that, like, on the road, they played at Michigan, but Michigan wasn't good last year. They beat them 38-17. Like, they just haven't experienced on the road in Big Ten play in November against a good football team. And
Michigan might have been the only power school that had worse quarterback play than Iowa, by the way, or at least on par with Iowa, because Michigan was a mess last year at quarterback.
Wisconsin wasn't good at quarterback last year either. They were terrible.
So, Sean, I know you got to get out of here, but I did want to flip to USC real quick. By the way, so you guys both picked a win, right, against Oregon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I got the loss. Sean, I'll let you start this. Then I know you got to dip out. Elliot and I'll take it from here. But give me the breakdown of your USC kind of what your kind of thoughts are.
West Coast, you're coming off a high-profile win over Oregon. Like we said, I think that wide receiver duo that USC has scares me a little bit with Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane. Those guys scare me a little bit. And I just think going on the West Coast, it's going to be a tough environment. I know USC still has a couple of question marks on their team. I mean, who doesn't at this point? But it feels like USC has a number at various spots. I think defensive line is one of them. But it's one of those games where you kind of think to yourself, man, like this seems like a prime let-up game for Iowa. And there always is one or two in a season.
Yep.
And this feels like it's gonna be that one. I just think USC, once again, a talented team. They're not the USC that your father's USC or your young uncle's USC. Like, I don't know how to say, like the 2005 Reggie Bush era, Matt Leinart. And I just think from, like we said, it could also be, what do we know about Iowa's secondary? Because USC is going to want to throw the football. But what do we know about USC's quarterback play? Like, that's still a big question for them too. So it's really one of those games. I think a lot of people are saying it's a trendy trap game, which I think it is. But I think USC also has a lot of talent and an improved defense too, which I think could really pay dividends for them as well. And just coming off that, if I was able to get, this is like we said before, this is one of those games which makes the schedule so hard to pick.
Yes.
Because it could really be a trap game where Iowa comes off a huge win over Oregon, or it could be one of those games where Iowa comes off a loss at Oregon and just blows USC out of the water like they did in the Holiday Bowl a couple years ago. Like, it could really go either way. But I have Iowa losing by, I think, 10, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's, like I said, I just think coming off that game against USC or Oregon, they're bound for maybe a little bit of a slip up, and I think this one's going to be that. So I'll catch you guys on the next pod, and we'll talk soon.
Okay.
All right.
See you, Sean.
Yep. See you guys.
I will interject here, Dave. This is almost on par because of how terrible Iowa has been on the road on the West Coast. This is almost on par with like them beating Penn State in my mind, in a way.
Wow. Okay.
In a way, bear with me. There's a little bit of nuance here. They've been so bad for the last ever, like 50 years on the West Coast.
That's what also made Iowa being USC in that bowl game such a shock, because of how bad they've been on the West Coast.
Exactly. They did it in Qualcomm Stadium, the home of the Chargers, I must say. Go Bolts. The original home, not Los Angeles. Anyway, I just don't know that they have the firepower to keep up with USC. Like Sean said, I think the defense is going to be better. A lot of it's contingent on USC quarterback play.
Yeah.
Because if Maava's really good, then he's the guy, and I could see him carving up the Iowa secondary. If the Iowa secondary is elite, then we're having a different conversation.
If Iowa secondary is elite, we're talking about Iowa making the playoffs.
Exactly.
Like that. I hate to dumb it down that much, and that's assuming Mark Gronowski is going to be Mark Gronowski of South Dakota State.
Exactly.
Like it's all about quarterback play in the secondary. To me, like Iowa's wide receivers, I think are at least good enough to help subsidize to help complement the running game, and it'll at least get 8-9 people out of the damn box that they've been running against for the last 7 years. Right, that's been the big thing for me. But I'm going off the basis that Iowa loses to Oregon. Okay, that's why this is probably my boldest prediction of the year. I think Iowa beats USC on the road. I don't know if I buy USC quite yet. Like you said, the quarterback play is a little bit iffy for me. I need to see the defense go out there and be competent. Like I get, they've done everything right. Okay, so like I'm not crapping on them for that. But they've been so inconsistent throughout the last several years where like you had USC boosters calling for Lincoln Riley to be fired despite having one of the most talented offenses in the country, right? Like you know what it's very equivalent to, Elliot? Iowa basketball. the last couple of years. Like the offense is tremendously fun to watch. It's efficient, but they give up big play after big play. The freest bet of the year was taking USC's overs because they were going to hit, right?
Yeah.
I think Iowa in season, I don't think Iowa loses to both Oregon and USC. If Iowa goes and beats Oregon, then I see the let-up game.
Yeah.
I'm going off the basis that Iowa's going to lose to Oregon, and I think they regroup. And if you look traditionally at Iowa in November, what happens? What does Kirk Ferentz always preach? They're going to play their best football in November. They're not going to lose back-to-back games in November, at least I think, in going based off history. Like, this is a team that will get better. And Iowa usually just finds crazy ways to win. So I had Iowa winning by 3. I think they'll be 8.5-point underdogs going into this one.
They also went to UCLA in November last year and lost.
Yeah, but that was just one of the weirdest games I've seen since I started covering Iowa. Like the fact that they ran the ball against Iowa when they were dead last in rushing offense in the entire country, it is mind-blowing to me just because of what we thought Iowa's defense was going to be. It also didn't help that, remember, that's when Jay Higgins had to leave the game too.
Right. Jaden Harrell was not set up for success there. You look at USC here in the from September 27th to November 15th, and they play Iowa at home. They are at Illinois versus Michigan, at Notre Dame, at Nebraska, who we don't know who's going to how good they're going to be. And then they play Northwestern at home on Friday, November 7th. So depending on how that stretch of Illinois, Michigan, Notre Dame, Nebraska goes, we could be looking at a team whose will is broken. Like we talked about with Wisconsin. I mean, like if they're just like packing it up, like, okay, Lincoln's, Coach Riley's going to get fired. Maybe,
I don't know if they can afford. I mean, have you seen his buyout? Well, they'll find a way. USC boosters are ridiculous, but like, I need to look. Go ahead. Sorry. I need to look at this and just say it.
You're okay. And then also they play Oregon the following week at Oregon. So this is a scenario where Iowa could catch them at the right time. So that factored in. Maybe the Penn State comment was a little hyperbolic, but we need to see their quarterback play. We need to see if their defense is worth a crap. And we need to see Iowa's secondary. But I mean, you could say that about just about every matchup. But
are you ready to hear this buyout?
Let me hear it.
$88 million.
Did he sign an extension already?
This offseason.
Oh my gosh. Why?
Yeah, let's see. July 16, 2025, his buyout's estimated $88 million. So let me backtrack about, they might be calling, some people might be calling to get fired. They're not paying that.
No.
That's insane. So again, my bold prediction is Iowa beats USC. That's what I got.
USC does have a tough schedule. Their non-con, other than Notre Dame, is terrible. I mean, Missouri State and Georgia Southern. So
it should be. I know people like, oh well, you don't. 10 Power 4 games is like that's the most you should ever play in a regular season. 11 is stupid.
Yeah,
it's stupid.
Fun. It's fun. It makes it fun for us, but stupid.
Well, I guess a lot of things in life are fun and stupid. But we're talking about college football.
Yes.
So again, I got Iowa winning. So this brings us to our final 2 games of the year. Very similar to the Minnesota game, Elliot.
Yes.
Iowa kicks the crap out of Michigan State.
I think Kirk.
That was the other game last year where you and I kind of sat back and said, "How?
Yep.
Like, what is happening there?" I really like their quarterback. I think he's a solid guy. I think he when he's good, he's really good. When he's bad, it kind of spirals a little bit. This is in Kinnick Stadium. This is senior day for a lot of really good seniors. I think it's Ethan Hurkett gets a pair of sacks. I think Mark Gronowski has a stellar game. I'm going to say he has 3 touchdowns through the air in this one. This accounts for 3 touchdowns. He'll run for a score in this one as well. When I actually go back and I look at my score I just had up, I must have gotten rid of it. I think I had at least a double-digit win for Iowa. Like, again, this is just another one where this has been circled on their calendar. I bet it's been circled on Phil Parker's calendar since last year. Like the second this happened, he goes, okay, we're going to get our quote unquote lick back, right? So give me the Hawks by double digits. I just think they're going to be a vastly superior team. Senior day, yeah, Iowa wins.
Same. Aiden Childs is good when he's really good, and he was really good last year. And I think Kirk Ferentz and Phil Parker and the rest of the team have a bad taste in their mouth after that horrible loss. Would not surprise me if Childs throws a couple picks. This is a scenario where I think Iowa handles them too, similar to, like you said, Minnesota. I think it's the exact same type of game. It's at home. It's November. I think this is a scenario where, I mean, Caleb Johnson really couldn't get going last year.
He had that one. Didn't he have that one big run the very last play of the first half?
He had a big run. I don't remember when it was, but he did have one big run. Other than that, could not get going. Would not surprise me if this is a Mark Gronowski game where, like you said, throws for 2 touchdowns. But this is an Iowa win in my mind.
I was going to say, this is probably one of the more confident Iowa wins I have on the schedule. Like, that's not UMass or Albany, right?
Right.
Like, it's like this and Rutgers, I think, are the two that really stick out to me. Maybe Minnesota, probably. You know what? Let me put Rutgers third. I'll put Minnesota, Michigan State probably in that top 2 category. I want to start with you on this one because I want your analysis of Nebraska heading into this season. If I start with it, I mean, Elliot, you know me, big Husker guy, alone. I get called a turncoat by everybody in Lincoln and the state of Nebraska for going to cover Iowa after, but it's all in good fun. Got mad love for a lot of the people over there. What's your opinion of Nebraska going into this year? Because some of the hype I've seen around them is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm talking college football playoff projections. Matt Rule's like 2-22 against ranked teams.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not gonna believe it until I see it with Nebraska. This is just a team that has found ways to lose games, whether you have a 5-star quarterback or not. A kid who's from the South. It's going to be cold again. Would not surprise me if this is a really low scoring game where Iowa wins 17-14 on a last-second field goal. Drew Stevens does it to them again and rips their heart out. That's my prediction at the end of it all. I do not think that Nebraska is going to be, the greatest thing since sliced bread. They're going to be coming off a loss, presumably at Penn State on Saturday. Saturday, November 22nd. So they're only going to have 6 days of rest. 6 versus 7, whatever. It's a Black Friday game like it always is. It's at Nebraska. It's at Nebraska. Now, Nebraska has a relatively easy schedule for the Big Ten.
Oh, they do.
Their ranked opponents are Michigan and Penn State. Iowa's probably going to be ranked at one point in this year. Other than that, they're non-con. They play Cincinnati in the non-con, which more power to you.
Have you seen them? They're a mess right now.
Yeah, they're
a mess of a program.
Bad in the Big 12, but it is Big 12, so it is Power 4 non-con. Other than that, they play Akron and Houston Christian, who is dog water.
I love
Michigan.
So
you got they're terrible. They're bad. Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota, Northwestern, USC, UCLA. They have a bye right before the Penn State game, which is probably favorable for them. But we have yet to see it with Dylan Raiola. They get their left tackle back, who I think tore his ACL before the season. Like,
their offensive line's going to be a mess this year, I think.
Is it?
I think Dylan's going to run for his life.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy to me that Dana Holgerson's really good, by the way. They have really good wide receivers. Like, Dane Key is going to be a monster this year for them, I think. And then you have Dylan Raiola, who I think he struggles with short and mid throws. He's got a cannon, though. And, some of the placements on his passes downfield last season were pretty unbelievable. He made some but there's also another thing to where I mean this respect. I don't know how I can say this respectfully, but I don't mean it to come across as disrespect. I think he buys into his own hype a little bit too much. And I think that ultimately is a detriment to him. But he's respected by his teammates. I think they have weapons. I don't really buy them at running back right now. I like their wide receivers. Their defense, they lost a pair of people on the interior. There's a reason why their defensive line coach went to Florida, got out there. Let me put it that way. I think Iowa in the trenches offensively is going to dominate Nebraska in this game.
which is perfect considering the weather.
Yeah. And Iowa having a running back by committee, which we believe is going to happen. And we'll talk about this on other podcasts, but Nathan McNeil, I think he could start next year. I don't think he's going to start at any point this year. I don't even know if he's going to have his red shirt taken off this year, but like he's got that kind of upside to me in the future. And he's going to be another guy that I think Iowa did a really good job of kind of getting out of Florida when he probably should have had more offers, quite frankly. Like his film's pretty ridiculous.
Hard agree.
I think I have Iowa by 7-10. Like I get it's at Nebraska, but Nebraska has too many question marks. And if you look at Iowa in the trenches, if their offensive line struggles, Nebraska's going up against that Hawkeye defensive line, Raiola is going to take a beating in that game. But Holgerson's good enough to be able to adjust and come up with things on the fly. And Dylan Raiola, from a pure arm talent point of view, is absolutely good enough to make some big-time throws. But I know everybody's going to hang their hat on what happened last year and what, Iowa was able to do. But you keep in mind, this is a 5-star guy who's won a lot of big games throughout his life. Like, that's going to be something that sticks in his mind. And I guarantee you it has stuck in his mind all offseason. He's going to be fired up.
Yeah. Between health and skill sets, I think this might be a Xavier Williams game that we return to. It'd be like, that's where he made his impact, because Jazz Patterson has that hard running style. He hasn't really been a huge factor late in the season, either of these last 2 years. And he's from Florida. Like he got to think about that. And Xavier Williams is from Indiana. I think this might be where he comes into the game with fresh legs in the second half and just churns through that defense. That I could very easily see that happening. Either way, field goal to win it as time expires. Like that's just Nebraska, Iowa football. So that's my prediction. Leaving Iowa for me at 8-4 this year.
Where do you see the passing offense?
I think improved. I think, 15 touchdowns to 2,500 yards. Like I just, it's hard for me to go any further than that, just with the history of the Iowa offense in the last few years, how bad quarterbacks play has been, the fact that Mark Gronowski is moving up from FCS. It's just hard for me to go any further than that right now.
Yeah. I got 9-3. And I'll be honest, like I could easily flip it to 8-4, 9-3, but like I need to see how the season plays. I need some of substance.
I mean, in our shared season preview article, I mean, like I could see 10-2, I could see 6-6. It's just that type of season where you're going into it. And it's like there are just a lot of flip-flop games where the ball goes a certain way for Iowa and they go 10-2. Ball goes a certain way for the opposing team, they go 6-6. I mean, this schedule is so tough on its face too, and we don't know what Nebraska is. We don't know what USC is. We don't know what Indiana is. Wisconsin, I don't see them being a huge threat. Same for Minnesota. No. We don't really is Jonathan Smith going to take this Michigan State team to a new level this year? Is Iowa State going to really be able to throw?
They live up to expectations. Like that's been their big downfall throughout their programs. Whenever they have a good season, they have to follow it up. People get hype. They fall a little bit short. I mean, it happens. I get it. So I'm with you. I think if you go 8-4, there should be two big goals. Obviously, they're going to go in and try to win it. Like I'm not saying that, but like two big things need to happen this year. And then I'll wrap it up. One, they have to flip the narrative about the offense, the passing offense. Like with Mark Gronowski and an improved wide receiver, you have to. It can't be bottom 10. You've got to break in that top 75, 80. No excuse. You have to do it now. Year two of a coordinator, experience O-line, etc. Two, Iowa needs a marquee win against a ranked opponent. Like they've been so bad since that win against Penn State, and I've been crushed by people by keep pointing it out. But like Iowa's been getting their butts kicked. They've lost by an average of 20 plus points or minus 16 in the turnover margin in the past 9 games against ranked opponents. Iowa has to be either Oregon, a ranked Indiana, if Indiana is a 9-10 win team, or Penn State. Or if they go on the road, USC's top 15 team. Like they have to get a big win this year. This is the year to do it.
That's your only shot Getting 1 or 2 of those is your only shot to get in the CFP, because that committee is not going to look at Iowa and say, oh, you beat Indiana, who's out of the top 5, and USC on the road, who's not a top 25 team, but you got throttled by Penn State and Oregon. They're not going to look at Iowa and say you deserve a spot in the CFP. They're just not.
I'm right there with you, man. So, all right, well, we thought this was going to go 45 minutes, but naturally we just kept going. And then we could have easily talked about Iowa State more in 20 minutes. Yeah. Easily, right? I mean, it is what it is. But we'll be back next week with our preview podcast. We're going to talk more about who's going to lead in certain stat categories. We're going to revisit the schedule a little bit in terms of biggest trap game, most impactful, a couple other things like that. We were going to do it this time, but I think I knew once we got to Iowa State and it was 25 minutes in Elliot, I'm like, we have to delay this a little bit. Yeah. But for Sean Bock, Eliot Clough, David Eickholt, be sure to stay locked into HawkeyeInsider.com. Rolling 3 deep at games this year. We got a lot of big stuff on the horizon, including some immediate post-game shows following every Iowa game, maybe some YouTube lives, maybe some others. We'll see where it all takes us, right? We'll have to do some testing of that out. But again, leave a 5-star review. Be sure to subscribe to HawkeyeInsider.com, 50% off an annual subscription, and be sure to follow us on Twitter and everything else. Until next time, peace.